Hello and welcome back to another episode of Cyber Voices, the official podcast of the Australian Information Security Association, otherwise known as AISA. I'm your host, as always, David Willett, and it is my pleasure to have you with us as we explore the diverse voices of the Australian cyber industry. This special edition of Cyber Voices was recorded at CyberCon 2024 and is part of our series from the conference highlighting some of the thought leaders that came together to make CyberCon so special. Well, welcome back to Cyber Voices, recording live on day 2 of CyberCon 2024. I'm joined by Simona Dimovski. Simona, how you going?
Hello. Good to be here today.
And we're really, really lucky. We've got 2 great guests to kick off day 2 with us. We have got Deany Jaghdour. I'm hoping I said that correct. There we go. From Retrospect Labs. And we have Simon Carabetta. Did I say that properly?
Carabetta.
Carabetta.
You were kind of there.
Okay, cool. Well, I got 1 out of 2. That's fine. From East Metro Health in WA. Welcome. How are we both going?
We're going really well, thank you. Well, I don't know if I speak for Deany. I'm going really well.
I'm going well, yes. Happy to have done our talk.
Oh, absolutely.
So the talks, you've just given the talk?
We gave the talk at 10:30 a.m. this morning.
What was your talk about?
It's about bias in cybersecurity hiring. So we're talking from the perspective of a recruiter, because Simon used to be a recruiter, and from hiring manager, because throughout my career I've been a hiring manager, and we've both been job seekers. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
So what's the bias in cybersecurity? What type of biases are we talking about?
So it was focused on the unconscious bias. So there was 3 that we were talking about. And I have to preface this now as well, like we did in the presentation. Deany and I are in no way, shape or form experts in psychology or philosophy, but it is a lived experience. We've seen it. We still see it happening. So the unconscious bias comes from our stereotypes that also impact our confirmation bias. So confirmation bias is where the information we select, what information are we going to accept? What information are we going to ignore based on our upbringing, our values, our ideologies, and our belief system. And then that also taps into what we call the implicit bias. The implicit bias is that automatic, I'm making an unconscious decision based on the stereotypes and the information in front of me that I choose to accept or ignore. And we do see that in the hiring process and in recruitment, not just in cyber, in every other industry, but we're at a cyber conference, we're going to stay in our lane, right?
Mm-hmm. What can we do about that? Like as a hiring manager, as an example, is it about the awareness that happens, or do you have any tips for us?
Yeah,
because we started out the presentation, we never wanted to come up with a solution. It's not about that. We're not going to solve the unconscious bias. We are human beings. It's part of our nature, but we are trying to make people more aware of how they are making decisions around hiring. So for one, it could be around the age of a candidate, say the obvious, the gender of a candidate, where the candidate's from, the education that they've had, where they went to school, what suburb they grew up in, things like that. And these are all based on stereotypes and our confirmation bias. And as we said, we're not coming up with a solution, it's being aware of how you're making a decision at the end of the day.
We had that icebreaker in between. So we had an image of 3 different candidates, 2 males, 1 female sitting in the middle. And I've put like the number of years experience in cybersecurity, right? And we asked the audience to stand up and I said, look, picture yourself as a hiring manager. Which candidate would be your preference for a GRC, cybersecurity GRC manager? And one of the males had 10 plus years experience in cybersecurity. The other was 3 plus years in cybersecurity, the female, and then another male, 25 plus years in cybersecurity. And I thought like there'd be a lot of people who would stay standing for the 25 plus years. There was only 1 guy at the end that chose 25 plus years.
Yep.
One question that I didn't like, because we asked him, well, what's your reason for, picking this person, right?
And he put on the spot for that guy.
Yeah.
Well, I did say to him, hey, mate, you've been caught out. I literally went down to him with the microphone and said, can you give us your answer?
Yeah.
He caught me off guard. He said, well, you haven't given me enough information about these candidates and their background and what does their CV say? And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, that's not the question. We wanted to just look at the age. But at the same time, he was giving us a really good response.
He was. But one thing I didn't ask that should have been asked was, why did everyone else discount the 25-year-plus older man?
Do you think that's more the age bias?
I think that's probably the age bias, or maybe people. I feel like it's kind of a double-edged sword, because I think people saw the years of experience and they didn't want to be perceived to have a bias in selecting someone with a lot of experience.
That's fascinating, really, even running that controlled environment sort of experiment. I wonder whether you have any insights on, how often does this happen, and what's the impact of having this unconscious bias?
Yeah, there was a lot of story time in our talk, and we were prepping this morning in the speaker lounge, and I've put a lot of memes last night. I'm neurodiverse, so I do everything last minute last night. Anyway, so we were talking yesterday about Mulan. You know
the Disney movie?
Disney movie Mulan?
Yeah. Hopefully the original animated one.
The original animated one.
Yeah.
And Simon, are you going to sing? Can we have Simon now?
You
Do you
don't
want to sing?
I sang in the room. I'm not singing now, sorry.
Oh, wow.
We missed that.
Yeah, you definitely. That was the highlight of the talk.
Be a man.
Be a man. Yeah, we are man. Yes.
So it's relevant. So one time, the way I met Simon was because he was the top cybersecurity recruiter in Perth at that time. And I connected with him, and he lined me up with this job. And I showed up at the interview place. And of course, I did my research, right? I looked up the person, the hiring manager, who I was supposed to meet. And I saw this man that looked kind of the same. I mean, he looked 10 years older, but he looked kind of the same as his LinkedIn picture, which is quite
we
common.
all do.
So I went up to him because he came into the cafe and he looked around. He's like, oh, couldn't find someone. I'm like, oh, I'm right here. So I went up to him. I said, hey, blah, I'm Deany. Are you coming? We're supposed to have an interview. And he looked at me. He was shocked. He was speechless. And then he said, oh, I thought you were a man. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sorry. I actually apologize.
You said, I'm so sorry to disappoint you.
Sorry about my gender.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. So that kind of why the Mulan thing, because, she was a brave young woman who went to war, dressed up as a man to take part. Yes, right?
So there's the link.
My resume did that for me, apparently. So my resume appeared to be male. Obviously, I wasn't male. So he was shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. And this is why within the actual presentation today, I was talking about different tools we can use as hiring managers and as recruiters to overcome this. And one is blind recruitment. Have either of you heard of blind recruitment?
Is this you sort of anonymize a lot of details on the CV, that kind of thing?
Pretty much all the details. So you have those bare facts about, what fits the criteria for the job in terms of education, skills, past career experience, and you leave the personal details out, especially the name. Out of the CV.
Yeah, he was very fixated on me being a woman. I guess he was trying to kind of backpedal and say, oh, it's good that you're a woman because we need more women. There's no women in my team. I'm like, you're not selling this job to me, mate.
He backpedaled and fell down a hill, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Simon.
No, that's fine. That's why I was a great recruiter, and I'm not a recruiter anymore.
Well, it must have been an interesting learning experience for you, though, Simon, to reflect and to get up and actually sort of tell the story. So how was that experience? And maybe this is a question for both of you as well, because you both sort of said you've experienced these unconscious bias as potential employees.
Yeah.
So how did that change things for you?
For me, it was actually, I've got to be honest, I need to tell you this, it was kind of therapeutic to tell that story because it's something as a recruiter at the time, I couldn't really, I did tell my colleagues, and, Deany and I would talk about it, but it's not a story I would often share. And particularly because as a recruiter, you don't want to lose certain business as well. But now being out of that, I'm reflecting on it a lot more and realizing we need to tell this story more often to people. And I'm sure it's not the only example. No. So for me, it was strange hearing that from Deany. She called me up that afternoon after the interview and told me all of it. And the funny thing is this particular hiring manager was a former boss of mine from a couple of jobs before. A couple of workplaces before. So I thought, I put two and two together. I was like, I'm not surprised he said that. Disappointed, but not surprised.
Yeah. And for yourself as well, how did that feel in that situation?
it was, to me, humorous.
Yeah,
But it
you
doesn't
took it
really-
with humor at the time.
Yeah. I just thought to myself, well, of course I seem like a man. My experience is amazing. I don't know. Look,
Yeah.
positive mindset is also something that we talked about, right? To mitigate. Like,
Yeah.
how as a candidate can you navigate around this bias is like, you know, you would get knockbacks and you would think, oh, I really wanted that job. I really believe that I was a fit for that job. If you get an inkling, maybe there was a little bit of bias there, it's fine. You probably dodged a bullet. Like, there's always that next opportunity that could be much better for you. So keeping that positive mindset as a candidate is really important.
I think what Deany also pointed out in the presentation, a really good strategy of hers, which worked really well because it kind of landed you your next role, was, you know, putting a video of herself up on LinkedIn about her skill set. And, you know, I'm currently a job seeker, and you're putting yourself out there at your most vulnerable, but the way she went about it, I think was just amazing.
Pretty
You got what,
innovative.
6,000 views like straight away on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
and-
So another recruiter, this was like, okay, so my job with Jacobs as a cybersecurity consultant, senior consultant, got made redundant, right? So I was like, first experience being made redundant, that comes with a whole raft of like emotions and, you know, where do I go from here? Right? It's very, very hard. Actually, being made redundant and talking about it, I found out so many other people had gone through the same, but no one really talks about it, so you don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from that, I got made redundant, so I got in touch with recruiters, including Simon, another recruiter, not Simon. Sorry, I just need to clarify.
That's totally cool.
That's a great idea. Because we were talking, like, even Simon's like, oh, your resume is great. Like, you should, you know, he was giving me a lot of good, I guess, leads, right? And the other recruiter as well. And I was like, why am I not getting even interviewed? And the recruiter was like, you know, yeah, it's probably because it is like resumes. So you're just really someone in amongst a sea of resumes. Like, there was a time when a lot of redundancies were happening. So there was a lot of talent, you know, out there.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, oh, why don't you do a video? That could be interesting. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. What do I don't. Yeah, I wasn't really comfortable, but I was so desperate that I made one with my amazing setup, not like this, with my Android phone, using Canva. Anyway, I posted it. I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? Worst is someone would say it's crappy, which is fair enough, whatever. I'll just... The second worst thing would be no one even looking at it. Is that really bad? Maybe not, because I was a bit embarrassed anyway. But it really worked. People even like reshared and engaged with it. I'm like,
That's amazing.
That's definitely a great
I was shocked. That was the first time I had experienced that support in the cybersecurity community. In Australia, I was like, wow, people were very supportive. That's how I got this job now that I find myself. Because Jason and I used to work together. Well, we knew of each other. And he got in contact. We sat down for a chat, not even a job chat. And then one thing led to another. And now I'm with Retrospect Labs. So
Amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really brave to share, you know, a personal story like that on your LinkedIn.
I think it was desperation, not bravery. Let me clarify.
I wondered whether you have, from that experience, I mean, you had an amazing sort of turnout and lots of views, whether there's anything in there, any tips for our listeners on, you know, what to do, maybe this theme around unconscious bias. I mean, that's a great example.
So being aware that everyone would have their bias, right? But what are we doing when we're applying for a job? We believe that there is an element of us that suits that job, whether it's usually it is experience and skills and certifications, right? So building, you need to have substance as well. It's not just like marketing and talking. You can only go so far with that. Build your skills, certifications, anything that could demonstrate what you have. That's number one. Secondly, networking. I know everyone talks about networking, but it really is important. Like if people don't know who you are, they're probably going to lean towards someone who they know, right?
Yeah.
Who
Very
they can
common
relate.
in cyber.
Yes.
We hire people that we like. We hire people we know.
Yeah.
And it's hard if you don't have the network. It's like, good luck to you.
So my
kind of
current
thing.
job, along those lines, I left recruitment. I was looking for the next thing, and I was out with dinner with a friend one night, and got this message all of a sudden on LinkedIn at like 10 o'clock at night, and it was from my current boss saying, "Hey, I've got a job. Here it is. What do you think?" So, well, let's meet up and talk more about it. And within a week, I was employed and I started.
Yeah.
So it's that power of the network. It really is. We are a pretty good community for that.
So networking is where bias works for you, right?
Mhm.
Because, you
Yes.
give that opportunity
Yeah.
for the person to have some views, positive, hopefully, of you and then choose you over someone else. The video really helped me because I know it's hard for people to network. You don't just go up and say, and many of us in the tech environment, this is a generalization. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
Simon and I are a bit different, but it does
Mhm.
take a lot out of me to network, right? We like to talk, but.
Yeah.
So that video actually brought the audience to me rather than me going out and connecting with
Interesting,
people.
yeah.
And actually, one of the things that I did, which was quite forward for myself, is when I posted that video, I tagged some companies that I thought, they would be interested in me, like
Yeah.
shamelessly. I was so
That's so
desperate.
clever. It's
Yeah.
actually
So
gold.
that-
That's
I
perfect
love that.
strategy.
Intentional
Yeah.
networking is
Yeah.
very important because there's so much noise out there,
Mm.
but also you need to demonstrate what you have, your strengths, right? And then the last thing is, highlighting the relevance that you bring to a particular job, whether it's in your application or your interview. It's like, it's obvious, but sometimes when you're in your desperation of looking for a job, you just like
Yeah.
spearfish everyone into looking at your resume and it's not really tailored. So that's where you can fail.
Yeah, we don't condone spearfishing, but in
No.
that case, it worked.
And is your video, it's an incredible story. I agree with Simona there, but it's almost a strategy to help break through the bias that exists.
Yeah.
Because you're putting yourself out there in a way that is more than just 1,000 words on a couple of sheets of paper to try and get across who you are. So did your talk kind of focus on both sides? Because it sounds like there's a bit of strategy for you as a recruiter or a hiring manager, but also you as an individual in how you can help yourself break through that bias.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah.
We really widen out it there.
But it's interesting, right? And I mean, I wonder if some people would go, but why do I have to? Shouldn't it be on them to break through their bias? But I think that what's the balance you see there in terms of how much is it? How much do you have to work as the person trying to get a job to try and stand out and break through the bias?
As a hiring manager, break through. I'll relate back to a story I told in the presentation. I was actually a high school teacher for 13 years before getting into cybersecurity. So high school, media studies, English, very cyber related. And it was in my first year that I really had to break out of the habit, which is a really nasty habit that teachers can get into, of their own unconscious bias. When it comes to assessing students, you may look at past results and past work that's been handed to you, anecdotes from other teachers about a certain student, behavior of the students in the classroom. A lot of that can impact the way we actually assess a student, as opposed to the reality of the information that's in front of us that's being assessed. And again, it's the stereotype bias. I've heard that name before, or this is how they are in class, or this is what their past results have shown me. That confirmation bias. I'm choosing to ignore the really good things on this essay and looking at the really bad points on this essay. And as a teacher, that's a horrible habit to get into. And it really takes a lot of self-reflection and mentoring to get out of that. My kind of, I guess, if there is advice from this, is for hiring managers to, when you start out as a hiring manager, to have some kind of mentorship where you can be able to reflect on your own hiring and recruitment strategies and why you select certain people, why you've shortlisted to that, and why you've made the final selection. Is it based strictly on the criteria that you've set out in front of you? Are you using those assessment tools and only that? Or are you tapping into something else that is more implicit and kind of, that unconscious thinking, that decision making that impacts, the final, I guess, decision that we're going to make? And that's why I'm a big advocate for blind recruitment. So and again, this isn't something that can work everywhere. Going to be very realistic. Blind recruitment is great, but if you're a small business, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You may run the whole business and you do all your own hiring yourself. How on earth are you going to have blind recruitment work? You're not. But if you're a medium to large enterprise, why can't you? Why can't you just have someone assess and shortlist based on criteria alone, and then let's anonymize these candidates and get them out to the hiring managers or the panel, or whatever it might be.
The bias can continue. I mean, interviews is where, so my experience with hiring, because I've worked in I spent 6 years overseas in tech startups, and I was in product side and also commercial side at fintech startups. And obviously I was hiring a lot, both sides. So whether it's engineers or, salespeople. And I was working with the CTO, who was amazing. Like, he was very, very capable, he's a gun at everything. He's intelligent. So we were hiring, and he was leaning towards this candidate who was like, he was good. He was a really good communicator.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that raised the flag was like when the CTO said, "Oh, thank God, he's exactly like me. He's basically me." And okay, maybe we need to step back a bit because you're basing your opinion because he's saying the right words and acting in the right way, but we don't actually know the subtext. Like, what can he do?
Yes.
In the job, how is he going to be? And is this just him mimicking the way you are? And, so that's an interesting point as well.
How much of it is self-awareness for people? Because I imagine we don't want to shame people for having biases because everyone has got them, unconscious or consciously.
Yeah.
It's more just your self-awareness of it. Don't feel the shame.
No.
But check yourself.
Yeah.
Or you a little bit,
yourself.
yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I think we just for the candidate side, it is good to have that awareness, like that people in front of you will have their biases, and you need to, as I said before, embrace it and just focus. If you feel like that conversation in the interview is going towards whatever bias that person is, you can kind of feel it sometimes. Steer it back to, this is my experience. This is how I can help the company. This is what I bring to the table. Keep it factual.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's a really important message right now. We have had a lot of people come through on the podcast talking about recruitment and issues with skills in cyber talent. And this is just another angle and layer of the problem that we need to break through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that talent shortage thing also could be because some kind of bias in the hiring managers. They're like, I'm looking for a certain type of person.
Yeah.
And then you have all these candidates that may actually have the skills that you need. They have the know-how, they have everything, but they just don't fit that character that you're looking for in your head,
of course,
as someone that you want to be working with. So that then could lead, there's no talent out there.
Yeah.
But another thing we also touched on is it's not just the bias in the decision making at the end. At the end, it's also the bias in the way certain job advertisements are written.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed when I was in recruitment was there are certain advertisements that might be crafted and tailored toward a certain demographic, which is kind of shutting out everyone else that could possibly be, or potentially be applying for that job. Certain words that are used. And we did a lot of work with Seek. They would come out and do workshops with us. And there was one that stuck out was when they were talking about there is certain gendered language that is used in some job advertisements. Some words are far more masculine, some words are more feminine, and they are going to determine who is going to apply for that particular job. So I was very conscious then to make my language a bit more neutral.
Give us examples.
So I wouldn't use words like you're a rock star or you're a champion.
I've done that. It's so tech, isn't it?
Legend.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'd be very much more neutral with the wording about personality, the type of people that we might be looking for, which I did an experiment.
Like, are they a woman?
No. Yeah. So I would jump on ChatGPT and I would actually ask it specifically, I've got this job ad. Can you turn it into more neutral language? Less masculine language? It actually did that for me. Okay. And I found that I was getting more likes or reshares or people applying to the job via Seek than I would if I were to use more, I guess, exclusive language in that job advertisement.
I mean, I had bias work for me many times. So, of course, I'm not going to say get rid of the bias. But an interesting, is this a requirement or is it a bias? So I was approached by a new senior in a well-known company, not going to name names, but they're very big on supporting women, getting more women into the tech industry, all that kind of stuff. So they're on brand, right? So this guy came to me, he's like, really want you to join my cyber team. We had a chat, blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, you're perfect. You sound Australian, so good for the local market. You have You know,
so he said that.
he said that.
Okay.
He's not from Australia, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
All
that
right.
maybe explains it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was like,
So he's not, because he's not Australian,
Yes.
not because I don't look anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then he said, "Oh, there's more." Then he said, "Okay, you got good experience. You can speak. You're very personable, not like most tech people." That's another generalization. Tech people can't speak to people, right?
Yeah, that's
So,
true. Yeah,
yeah.
that comes
Mhm.
across like I hear it a lot as well.
But then is that
Yeah.
manifested? Because they keep being told that, like,
Yeah.
you're a tech person, you can't talk to people.
And it's almost
Yeah.
like the expectation isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. So
we're
then
just going to hire someone to sit in the back corner and do
the actual important
Yeah.
work. Where
Yeah.
when me and people like me and Simon speak to people
Yeah,
on your
yeah.
behalf and get stuff wrong. Anyway, no, that's not what we do. We're
That's
very
just me.
accurate. But the next one was very important. He's like, we have a quota. You're a woman, so you really tick that. So you're ticking all the boxes. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Well, at least he said I had the right experience, because otherwise, am I a diversity hire? Yes, obviously I am, because he told me that. How do I feel about it? Am I bothered? I'm not really. If I get a job, I'll then also at the same time, maybe people would not take me as seriously, because they know that, oh, she's just hired because she's a woman. So is it a requirement? Is it a bias?
It's look, and this is the thing.
It's a tricky one.
It's diversity is something that people tend to get wrong. It's not gender, ethnicity, culture, background. It's not just all those things. It's
The
also
obvious ones.
how do you think? It's neurodiversity as well. It's also looking at your education, what you've done in the past. Are you transferring skills from another industry? Have you coming over for another career? Because when you get a team that has different experiences and different ways of problem solving and different ways of doing things, then you get those unexpected, out of the box, left field solutions. And that's where innovation actually happens.
Innovation.
We talked about that. The word that gets overused a lot as well.
I'm sure you've heard innovation a lot.
First time.
Of course.
It's a really great message and a really, really timely one. So thank you so much for and congratulations on the talk.
Thank you very much.
And good luck with the rest of the conference, and thank you so much for sharing your voices with us today.
Absolutely,
you.
our pleasure.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having
David.
us.
Thanks, Simona.
Thank you so much.
Well, hello there, fellow podcasters. Are you looking to level up your podcast game? Well, let me tell you about This Is a Studio. This Is a Studio is where we record cyber voices each and every single week. They're located at 693 High Street in Pran and Ikla Hawthorne East. They're Melbourne's go-to video podcast studio. Whether you're starting a podcast or taking your podcast to the next level, they've got everything you need: quality equipment, a professional setup, and a team that lives and breathes podcasts. And if you're like us and thinking about going live, these are the folks behind the scenes at events like the AFL Grand Final, Equitina Melbourne 2024, and of course here at CyberCon 2024 as well. Seriously, these guys really know their stuff. So, if you're ready to make your podcast shine, check them out at thisisastudio.com.au. This is a studio where Melbourne's best podcasts come to life. Thank you for listening to another episode of Cyber Voices. Our music is by Sonar Garut, our show artwork is by Studio Quarantine, and we record our show at This Is a Studio in Pran, Melbourne, part of Popplant Productions. Please make sure you follow the show on your podcast platform of choice and leave us a 5-star review. This will help others find the show. Also, please follow the association on LinkedIn and Instagram. If you want to add your voice to our ever-growing chorus of diverse cyber voices, have questions, feedback, or would like to be a sponsor, you can do so by emailing us at cybervoices@aisa.org.au. That's cybervoices@aisa.org.au. Are you an AISA member? If not, you should consider joining our network of over 12,000 members across Australia. An AISA membership can open doors, build professional networks, create lifetime friendships, and offer exclusive training, events, and other perks. Become a member today by heading to our website at aisa.org.au. That is all for today. I hope you will join us again next time on Cyber Voices.